Hello philosophy fans. The question that I get asked the most on the show is which books should somebody who is new to philosophy pick up? Well, last month a new philosophy book came out. It's by Timothy Williamson, who is a professor of logic at Oxford University, and it's called Tetralogue. Now, full disclosure up front, I got sent this copy of the book for free. It turns out that somebody at the publishers is a bit of a fan of the show, but I'm not getting paid to review it or anything. There's no philosophy gate corporate shilling going on or anything like that. They sent me a copy of the book. They said, hey, you might like this, you might not, and I decided to do a review of it for them. Now, the first thing to mention is that the book is written as a tetralogue, which is like a dialogue but with 4 people, and yeah, I bet you're glad I told you that. You'd never have guessed it from the title, would you? Writing philosophy as a conversation between characters rather than just making an argument has a very venerable history that goes all the way back to Plato and his dialogues, but it presents a very unique challenge, because not only have you got to make sure that the philosophy is clear, you've got to make sure that the characters and their setting are engaging and come to life as well. Otherwise, at best, they're just kind of pointless and you may as well just write a normal argument, or at worst, they're actually getting in the way. So it's interesting that in Tetralogue, none of the characters represent a supposedly correct point of view. That's very different from, say, Plato's dialogues, where the character of Socrates is the guy we're supposed to be rooting for. He's the one who's making the argument that we're supposed to take away from this. Whereas in Tetralogue, everybody's kind of got their flaws and we're not really on anybody's side. We've got Zach, who's a bit of a flip-flopper who keeps changing his mind. Sarah, she's a bit stuck up and knows a lot less about what she's saying than she thinks she does. Bob, who's just a bit of a tool, frankly. And Roxanne, who is an arsehole. Between them, on their train journey, they talk about a whole bunch of topics, like the nature of knowledge, whether knowledge can be attained, how it can be attained, skepticism, what truth is, whether experience is a guide to truth, the fact-value gap. It's a very, very broad discussion. The book is divided into 4 chapters, and each one is just about the perfect length. Williamson has obviously got a keen eye on your attention. Whenever it starts getting too in-depth, he wraps it up, and whenever it starts getting too dry and technical, Bob chimes in with some comic relief. For the most part, the characters are just placeholders for the different philosophical positions being discussed. Williamson does imbue them with just enough personality to make them compelling, although the characterization is a little bit forced at times, and I suppose that's probably because keeping 4 identifiable voices going requires you to make them quite easily and quickly distinctive. Now, because the book is one continuous conversation in 4 parts, it isn't always as clear as it could be. For instance, contrasting it again to the Socratic dialogues, at the start of those you usually get Socrates or some other character saying, hey everybody, let's talk about this, and maybe along the way we'll talk about this, this and this, but we'll get to those later. So you've kind of got an idea of where it's going and what to look out for. Whereas in Tetralogue, it's kind of written as a continuous flowing piece, so it moves from position to position and point to point in a less transparent way. It could maybe have used summaries at the end of each chapter saying, hey, Zach's position in the previous chapter was called relativism. If you want to know about it, here's a brief summary and here's a list of texts that you might find useful. If it was intended for people who've never read any philosophy before, then that would have been quite a useful thing to have. A little bit like the model of Julian Baggini's book, The Pig That Wants to Be Eaten. On the other hand, because it isn't arguing for a single particular point of view, it does move quickly and it does move a lot of ground. And ironically, in trying to keep things simple, it does sometimes bite off more than it can chew. So if it was intended for people who've studied a lot of philosophy before, then they might find that it doesn't quite go into as much detail as they would like. So I think I'd recommend it for people who are neither new to philosophy nor experts in it. If you've picked up a little bit of philosophy before, maybe some other introductory books or classic texts, then you might get a kick out of it. It's pretty good. Writing philosophy as a tetralogue does present that unique challenge though. You've got to balance the characters with the philosophy, and there are times in Tetralogue where those 2 elements get a little bit out of whack and they do step on each other's toes a little bit. Of course, like any review, it's just my opinion. So that's Tetralogue. It's available in all good bookstores if you want to pick it up. Might make a good gift for the philosophy high school student or maybe undergraduate in your life. My thanks to Professor Williamson and Oxford University Press for sending me this. It's very kind of you guys, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!